right, welcome to another episode of the 24th Floor. It's actually been a minute, a hot minute. We're back, though. Part of the reason we've been on vacation is because, Rich, you've been on vacation.
Yeah, I've been out, but it was needed. I mean, you know how it is when we got all that PTO we got to use. I had a chance to go back home, spend time with family and friends. It's the longest time I've been home in my career, Ruben.
Yeah, I don't take a lot of time off either. I'm going to take a week off next week. It'll be the only full week I've taken all year.
Yeah, and so I came back last week, had to get back in the flow in our newscast. That's why I'm all dressed up like this, you know what I'm saying? Starting to get on the anchor desk with Ruben. But let's touch on everything we've missed while we've been on this little hiatus, if we can roll. A full screen we've got. So, Ruben, this has all didn't happen since the last time we were on.
You missed a lot. Lane Kiffin left for LSU, which I told you was going to happen.
Okay.
Just so we're clear. Silverfield left for Arkansas.
But see, you were doubting that was going to happen.
True. I saw the rumor and was like, there's no way they're doing this. They did it anyway.
So, we're 1-1. You know what I'm saying? You was like, nah, I don't think he's going to stay.
Grizzlies won 8 of their last 10 after starting really slow.
I know, and it seems on this program we were talking about that they were just kind of looking at, draft-a-thon or tank-a-thon or whatever, and now they're back in playoff talks.
Yeah. Tigers Hoops won 3 of the last 4 while you were gone. Things have changed then.
Yeah, exactly. Good thing for them. But Ole Miss Hoops, a team that I thought was going to be probably one of the top teams in the SEC, they've lost 4 of their last 5.
Yeah, and Coach Beard had a lot to say about that. I'm sure we can ask Mr. Stephen Willis about that a little bit later in the show.
We'll have him on in just a moment. So that's a list of everything that's happened since we were last on the show. Let's just go in order and just start with college football. Let's talk about the Memphis Tigers. Their season's going to come to an end this week.
Yeah, and not the way that they wanted, right? Initially, the talk was all about getting to the college football playoffs, being a group of 5 team, but now they're actually going to be competing in Tampa in the Gasparilla Bowl. That's going to be on Friday. They're going to be taking on NC State, which I think is a game they can lose if they're not careful.
Yeah, I mean, and the last outing for the Tigers we see right here, there was on Thanksgiving. They lost to Navy 28-17. For the Tigers, I just don't know. I mean, things have been kind of trending in the wrong direction. I know it's a lot of hype around the city with the hiring of Charles Huff, which I did the story on him in his presser. But, I mean, you got the guy, Reggie Howard, that's going to be the interim coach because obviously Silverfield has gone to Arkansas. I like what Memphis is kind of wanting to do here, but we actually got a chance to hear from Reggie Howard with how he's approaching the game for the Tigers, and we can roll the clip.
We're going to treat this game like a Super Bowl, all right? This is our last opportunity to play this year. We want to send our seniors out the right way, and we want to put on display the type of team that we are, playing with passion, playing with heart, and playing with strain, and showing them what this Memphis football is all about.
And I think great quote, great sentiment, but I would venture to say that every coach in that situation is going to say the same thing. It's our last game. We're treating it like the Super Bowl. It's the biggest game of the year for us. We want to finish the right way. That's what we would call coach speak in the business, right? I do think they have good intentions. My question will be, is the team as focused? Was losing Silverfield a bonus or a minus for the players, in the players' minds? And we don't know that question, but they. And playing for the interim while you have a new head coach already named, is that a positive or negative in the players' minds?
But I'll give you a contrast because I think in this new NIL world, with you got the portal and stuff like that, you'll see a lot of players are opting out, whether they opt out to hit the portal, whether they opt out to test for the NFL draft. And so the fact that Howard said that there's been no opt-outs, I think that's kind of good. If I'm a Tigers fan, that means they're all in. We've got teams who aren't even competing in bowl games. You got Notre Dame, who was being crybabies. They didn't make the college football playoff, didn't want to play in their bowl. Iowa State declined to be in the bowl. Kansas State declined to be in the bowl. So, I mean, Memphis could be in that category. They lost their coach, but they're still playing.
And now let me go ahead and flip a little bit for you, which is your point is valid. I'm not saying it's not valid, but you're also talking about a team that's 4-4 in conference.
Yeah.
Right. You're talking about a team that started with really high aspirations and things really changed to the back end of the season. So I think this idea that a bunch of people didn't jump ship yet, a lot of times you're going to want to wait and see what the actual new coach is going to want to do before you decide if you're leaving for the portal. He may be able to get you more money, so you're not going to test that water until after he gets in that chair and has a chance to sit down and talk to everybody. So it doesn't shock me that a bunch of guys haven't left yet because it's not like they were going to Arkansas with Silverfield. If he had a bunch of guys that he was taking with him to Arkansas, that'd be different. You'd see those names already surfacing. Now, the portal doesn't open yet, but people could be declaring that they're going to.
Yeah, like Arrington Maiden, the backup quarterback, he said he's going to declare for the portal, but he's still going to dress for this game and prep for this game because who knows? I mean, obviously you got the injury issues with Brendan Lewis. This could be a showcase for Maiden. So I get what you're saying, but guys can easily, that's all the more reasons like, okay, what are we playing for? You know what I'm saying? And be like, all right, this was a season that we didn't like. Let's just go ahead and move on.
Which I think is the fear of we still call them mid-majors, but they're FCS or whatever, right? Like they're not Power 4. That's what I think the fear is for teams at Memphis's conference level, American Conference, Conference USA, all those types of conferences. The fear is you start to shoot for that Power 4 college football playoff berth every year, and when you don't reach it, now what's left? That's why I personally think there should be a P4 national championship tournament, and there should be a subdivision national championship tournament every year. So
it's like a play-in for the P4?
Absolutely not. I think they should have their absolute own.
So they won't get in the playoffs. So
there are two separate college football playoffs. You have a Power 4 college football playoff, and then everybody else Division I Power.
So in this world, Tulane or James Madison
would not be in the P4.
Wow, what a hot take there, folks.
Tulane is going to get massacred.
They
by
are,
Ole Miss.
but they deserve
What's the point
be there.
Deserve? What's the point? You're taking the spot of another team that could actually compete for a national championship. They cannot compete for a national championship against that lineup. There's no way. There's no way.
So what if like Tulane jumped into the Power 4 thing?
They'd have to A, get their enrollment up, B, get their roster size up, C, get their money up.
Because Memphis was knocking on the door to Big 12, and Big 12 was like, nah. So it's like
knocking on the door and having a conversation are two different things.
And then it just all varies about the sport. Because I mean, in football, but
correct.
in basketball, you wouldn't say that.
Absolutely not. In basketball, I would say that the Memphis Tigers on any given year could compete in an Elite 8 Final Four with almost any team in the nation. Correct.
Yeah.
But in football, we're talking about a different animal and a different beast. And I'm saying that what I'm saying is for teams like Memphis, Tulane, South Florida, North Texas, James Madison, all these teams that have had great seasons or had great opportunities, they don't get a chance to compete for a national championship because they're never going to be able to compete at that level. The money.
You're basically saying they're almost like the equivalent of being a 16 seed in March Madness.
100%. They are in the play-in game every single time. So what is the point? So it's a disservice to the team. It's a disservice to the fan base. And I know some people aren't going to like, oh, well, we want to play for the national championship. Man, get real. Get real. If you have never been in the trenches of this stuff and understood how this stuff really works, I'm telling you right now, that's a fantasy. What could be a reality is giving all of the non-P4 teams their own shot at a real national championship.
Wow.
Why wouldn't you?
I don't know, man. I just feel like that's almost like the Little League. That's like the minor league.
It's already like the minor league.
AAA.
It's already.
This is even playing field that we got now with the 12-team
No,
playoffs.
it's not. It is not even
and
playing
then
field.
it's like you see how this can heighten a brand by making the playoffs. And then, like I said, with this portal world and now JUCOs don't count against you. What I think that we see now in these non-P4 teams is you'll have a guy who very touted out of high school, and he could go to a Memphis. He can go to a Tulane. And then get his stats up because maybe he goes to a Georgia or an Ole Miss and he doesn't play in year one, but he plays in Memphis, gets his stats up, and then he transfers to one of these power conferences.
Yeah. What does that sound like? Sounds like minor league baseball, doesn't it? Sounds like minor league baseball, doesn't it? It's minor league. So don't tell me it's.
Look at Arizona State. Even though Arizona State technically is a power.
They're a P4.
Yeah, but Arizona State was one time in those conversations where they were like on the borderline where you could be like, this is the same level of being one of those non-P4s.
So what do you think the difference is once they make that change? The money.
Yeah.
The resources.
They made the playoffs.
No, it's because when you commit to playing in a P4 conference, you have to commit to the money and the resources. They're not just going to take you if you're a good team. Being a good team is almost irrelevant. You have to be a good team, but you have to be a good team with the resources behind you. The monetary resources behind you, the fan base behind you, the attendance behind you, all of the ticket sales behind you, all of that stuff matters because it's ultimately really about money if we're keeping it real.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is you're describing a minor league system.
Yeah, but
it's already a minor league system.
I get it on that way, but you still have those teams to have their crack at doing something special. And then, hey, man, if they want to jump ship, they want to jump ship, but at least that brand can get a taste of the playoffs.
So do you understand?
Think about SMU.
Think about this. I'm going to put it to you like this. Tulane getting a crack at the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they're going to get cracked.
Yeah. because
straight
they're
up,
playing Ole Miss and
straight up,
they'd already beat
straight
them.
up dog walked in the first round of the playoff game. Yes, so they can hang their hat on. We made it to the college football playoffs. That's right. That's correct. You made it there, and that's it. You can't actually. They're not going to advance unless Ole Miss just completely drops the ball.
Which I don't think will happen.
It's not going to happen. They have no shot of advancing. No team in that situation has a shot because people have got to understand the difference in the depth of these teams too. There are people on the second and third string at places like Ole Miss and Georgia and Alabama that don't get to play that are as good, if not better, than the starters.
And those will
on
be
these other
stars
teams.
on the other teams on the James
But they're
Madison
not right
and
now.
Tulane.
That's right. And why do you think they're not?
Because they decided to go to those schools straight
Why do you think
out of
they
high
did?
school or
Why
whatever.
do you? So
because
again,
of the conference.
You're making my argument.
I
for me.
get it, but I'm saying, I was like, they could easily be on the
But they're
Tulane and
not.
James Madison.
But they're not.
And go play in the playoffs.
But they're not.
Get their stats up. And
They're
then
not. Do you know
be
why
better
they're
off.
not? They're not going to constantly always go to those smaller schools because there's not enough money. James Madison, Tulane, Memphis, they don't have enough money to pay that many big-name players to not go to Georgia, to not go to Bama, to
But
not
guess
go.
what? Getting into the playoffs brings the money.
For a short period of time, they all work at a deficit right now. Almost every college football program is in the negative, not in the positive. So you get that, $500,000 for making it to the playoffs or whatever. Cool, that just goes back into the budget. That's not enough to pay 5 NIL guys.
I mean, to me, I think a perfect example is like SMU, a team that was once in the American and was able to move up into the ACC. They made the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
You see what it's done for their brand, getting more money off that playoffs, and now they can recruit guys to come to play at SMU. SMU is not too different from Memphis aside from, SMU was able to get ahead of Memphis again in the ACC. I think if Memphis actually tried to get in the ACC instead of trying to get in the Big 12, they would have more luck, but that's for another story.
Okay, and I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not just arguing that point. The point you're making is not the same point we're talking about. The point you're making is once a team like a Memphis, an SMU, a Houston, gets into a bigger conference, they're able to compete.
Get in the pie.
That's right.
Get
So what I'm saying is,
while they're not in, they can have a piece of the
if
pie.
you can't get to the big table, you can't get a piece of the pie. And until if Memphis, Tulane, South Florida, if they want to get to the big table, it will help them then compete at that spot. Then they'll have more money to play with. They'll have bigger rosters they can get. They can compete and recruit against the P4 conferences because they'll be in a P4 conference. Right now, it's just hard to do that. The money is just not there, and it's tough. I mean, I think Memphis had a chance to be great, but what happened? Depth. Quarterback got hurt.
Defense wasn't as good as we thought they were.
So let's flip that. Ole Miss. Quarterback got hurt. What happened?
Trinidad Chambers.
100%.
Backup quarterback was the man. I always said he was better than Austin
Because you
Simmons.
had what? The money to pay a Trinidad Chambers. You
got
understand
him
what
out
I'm
of
saying?
D3.
You can take a guy like that and pay him to be your backup because you can afford to pay somebody that much money to be your backup. But Memphis can't afford to pay that guy to be their backup.
They had to play it the old school way.
100%.
Out of high school, while Ole Miss
And then
got their
develop-
backup
and
from
then-
D3,
yes.
who was a champion
and
already.
you're developing. So in Memphis, in Tulane, and South Florida, they're developing guys, which I love. I love that there are schools that
They're
still
kind of
take
being
young
feeder
guys
systems.
and develop. But the point you were making earlier is that, well, they can play at James Madison and then they can go to a bigger. That's minor league baseball.
Yeah, they are, but I was
what they're
looking
doing right
more
now.
at the thing that it still heightens the brand of the school because they can, at the end of the day, no matter what, Tulane's going to say, we were in the college football playoffs. James Madison, we were in the college football playoffs. Now that's what they use for recruiting, and they will tell guys, hey, you can come here, you can shine, and we can make the college football playoffs.
And get beat by 50.
Yeah, but you still
And
have
get
the exposure.
beat by 50.
At the end of the day, there only can be one winner.
So let me ask you
You know what I'm
this.
saying?
So if you're a high-level player and you've got an opportunity to go to Tulane or LSU, both are in Louisiana.
Okay.
All right, and Tulane's coming to you and said, hey, we made the college football playoffs. You could come here and get that exposure, or you could go to LSU. Where are you going?
Where am I going to be a starter at?
Okay, so say, okay, I'm going to go to Tulane so I can start and play because eventually I want to do what?
Go to a bigger level.
100%. So even if the idea that you can use that prestige to recruit, for 1 year, and then those guys are leaving anyway, and now you're constantly trying to refill that roster, which they're doing to a certain degree. Anyhow.
They're going to do that every year.
But I'm just saying you're not going to be able to
that.
bank on the fact that you can pull in all these big recruits because you made it to the college football playoff because those guys you're talking to are also talking to those schools that always have a chance to make it to the playoffs.
And then also some of these schools end up being second chance programs. You know, guys who maybe wasn't getting PT at Ole Miss, wasn't getting PT at Georgia, wasn't getting PT at Texas. And like, you know what? I'm not playing. Let me go to Tulane. Let me go to North Texas or stuff like that.
Right.
We've talked so much about
this.
We
all the way off the rails.
We haven't
but it was
even talked
good.
about the Gasparilla Bowl and like, do we think Memphis is going to win?
We'll do it real quick. Let's do it real quick. We'll do Gasparilla Bowl real quick. And
Okay.
then we'll take a break.
All right. So can we really quickly hit our bullet points of why I think Memphis will win this game? Ruben, I talked to you about this yesterday. Now, I put it in 5 bullet points. The pressure is actually off Memphis. Everyone expects the ACC team to win.
True.
Silverfield is gone. The narrative is already written. Memphis isn't scared of the moment. They've been here before. This isn't a plucky underdog, Ruben. This is a relaxed, dangerous team.
Theoretically.
And then, I mean, they've proven they can beat bigger programs, but
Arkansas doesn't count.
But still, that Arkansas is an SEC team.
Arkansas doesn't count. They're so bad. They were so bad.
They were, and Silverfield still went there.
Yes, they were so bad.
I mean, you know, they won't be in, but it shows that Memphis won't be intimidated by logos, the conference,
I
or
agree
the
with
crowd.
that.
Because they don't care what league you're in. They care if you can stop them. Now, the big thing I want to focus on is on third down. You know, I'm a big stats guy. Memphis is a matchup nightmare on third down because NC State is actually one of the worst third down defenses in the country, and Memphis thrives when it strings drives together. So this isn't about explosive plays; it's about staying on the field.
Well, so if you take that a layer deeper, the reason Memphis is so good on third downs is because they stay ahead of the chains, and they stay ahead of the chains because they have a good running game. If you have a strong running game, you're getting 4 or 5 yards on first down. Man, you're ahead of the chains. It opens up your playbook a lot. When you've got third and long consistently, your playbook gets a lot smaller and it's a lot easier to defend. The fact that Memphis runs the ball so well and gets great yardage on first down is what allows them to be great on third down, which a lot of people don't understand or maybe don't realize. That's what creates great third down offense, is having great first down offense.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think if Memphis can get it third and manageable, NC State's defense is going to crack because, like you said, Memphis staying ahead of the chains. And then one of my last things I want to talk about is red zone. I think it's just automatic points for the Tigers. Memphis, they're elite once they get inside the 20, while NC State on the flip side allow points on 84% of red zone trips. So this is a bend but don't break defense, but for NC State, this is bend and break. So lastly, what I want to say, Ruben, the pass rush for the Tigers has to show up. Memphis' path to winning is clear. If they can pressure C.J. Bailey, who is a dynamic quarterback over at NC State, they can tackle those underneath throws. Don't let him settle in. They don't need sacks. They just need disruptions.
Oh, and so I'll counter that with the NC State bullet points because this is what we kind of spoke about. C.J. Bailey, the best player on the field for NC State, as we take a look at some of the NC State video. I will say this. When I looked at NC State has some holes, obviously, but they've also played some tough competition this year. So their record is a little deceiving because of the conference they're in, and their points totals, their differentials are a little deceiving because of the conference that they're in. The C.J. Bailey, you wrote some great points in here. 70% of NC State's completion percentage, he controls the tempo. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that Memphis struggles when the quarterback gets comfortable, which is very true. That definitely happens.
You look at how that happened with Byron Brown, the Tulane quarterback, the Navy quarterback.
Memphis defense is aggressive, but that can sometimes bite you in the butt, right? Too aggressive leads to big plays over the top. They do attack downhill, NC State does, but that opens up lanes for quick throws, short crossing routes, yards. My biggest thing is when you start looking at their records. So NC State has some good wins and some bad losses.
Good win over Georgia Tech.
Good win over a great ranked Georgia Tech team. Now they got beat hands down by some really good teams like Miami, but they did get a win over ECU. Yeah. Right, which is a common opponent.
Who beat Memphis.
And they finished with wins over North Carolina and Florida State.
Saying much.
Now, North Carolina's not
like
good.
ACC Arkansas.
But Florida State was decent.
Were they? Florida State didn't make a bowl game.
They were decent.
That's another ACC
downs.
Arkansas.
So again, that's kind of my point to NC State is I think it's hard to compare. You can't just look at their records and say, and then this is going to be an easy one or this is going to be a hard one, because their record is a little deceiving in my view.
Yeah, I mean, C.J. Bailey, I really liked watching him. For me, it was a showcase for him when I watched him play Georgia Tech. Obviously, Georgia Tech, was my team growing up before I went to college. So that kind of hurt me that when NC State beat them, and that's the reason why Georgia Tech's not playing for a title. But, yeah, I think it all comes down to it. I mean, Memphis have seen dynamic quarterbacks like Brown at USF, the Navy quarterback, the Tulane quarterback. So they kind of know a guy like C.J. Bailey, and then Brendan Lewis kind of plays a lot like him. So I think at the end of the day, and it sounds cliche, this will strictly be if Memphis can get the stops, they will win.
100% cliche. I think the biggest difference in this game is going to be for Memphis is the fact that Brendan Lewis has had several weeks to recover.
All right, so we are done talking about Memphis for now, but we're not
lot.
done talking about college football. We have to get to Ole Miss football. Roll the stinger, producer Leanna. Let's get to it.
All right, we're talking about playoff game coming up, and Lane Kiffin leaving town. 7 years, $91 million. That's about $13 million a year. Playoff payback, believe it or not, which I think his agent is a genius. He gets paid for Ole Miss wins in the playoffs.
I mean, ski mask.
That is a straight heist right there.
Shout out Jimmy Sexton.
Highest paid coach if LSU wins the national championship under him.
Just a messy exit, man. Bad optics, no runway. Ole Miss didn't just lose a coach. It lost the face of the program right before the playoffs. I got to say, this kind of hurt me, Ruben.
I don't know why. I told you it was coming. I'm not the only one who told you it was coming. In fact, the man who gives us all of our Ole Miss insight told you it was coming.
Yeah, Ole Miss is left to answer the biggest question. Is this program bigger than one coach? So joining us now to talk about Mr. Kiffin is, like Ruben said, a man we've talked about this from the very beginning. You can't talk about Ole Miss without including this guy. He's the host of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, which you can catch right here on the 24 Plus app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Once again, at long last, welcome back to the program, Mr. Stephen Willis. Here you go, Ruben. I got to give him the clap. Set, hi!
First of all, you're not a quarterback.
Hey,
I can tell you right now, that set hut it's not going to work. You are not Trinidad Chambliss. Let's get to it, though. Mr. Stephen Willis, first of all, can I say you and I were both right. Lane Kiffin was leaving Ole Miss. Give yourself a pat on the back, brother. You were correct.
Thank you very much for that. It became pretty apparent pretty early that he was gone. It was just a matter of what they were going to do. I think a lot of people didn't know that Pete Golding was going to be immediately elevated to a permanent head coaching position. But I tell you what, he has absolutely destroyed the last 2 weeks. Anything that's been at his feet, he's handled it very well. And if he performs on the field, which we're going to find out in a couple of days, I think Ole Miss might be in pretty good shape moving forward, depending on how Pete does.
So Stephen, let's kind of look to life after Lane. Like you said, Pete Golding steps in. This is a guy who I've said I thought was a head coach candidate, regardless of what happened with Lane. So I was actually happy that they didn't even say, you know what,
and they did it so quickly.
Interim. Yeah, they did it so quickly. No interim, just go ahead and be the whole thing. So I think for this, the locker room response matters more than the playbook changes because this team could have fractured, but it didn't. And so now I think when you look at what's ahead, it's less about scheme and more about belief. Does this team feel loose or does it feel like it has something to prove?
Feels galvanized, if that makes sense. This whole thing brought them closer together, and once they got out on the practice field and started preparing for this game, all of a sudden you started hearing stories like the energy's off the charts. They're extremely fired up, which you should. It's playoff football. You kind of hit that and you get going, and all of the other stuff that's going to happen in 2026, that's going to happen. But this is still the 2025 team, and this Ole Miss team is as talented as most of the other teams in the country. Their only loss was by one score on the road against Georgia. And last I checked, you're not going to have to go back to Georgia to play. So they have to be feeling pretty good about themselves right now.
Now, Stephen, I don't know that you could have scripted it any better for Pete Golding in the fact that he gets the job immediately, and his first game, even though it's a playoff game, is Tulane, a team you already know, a team you've already whooped, a team that it's kind of a great first run for Coach Golding, don't you think?
It is fantastic. If you look at it, the first two games potentially for Coach Golding is game plans that have already been made. You talk about Pete Golding calling defensive plays and all of the stuff getting used to head coach. It's going to be nice that about 75% of the game plan was already prepackaged because they played earlier in the season. So he can concentrate on the media pulls and all the other things that make first-time head coaching very difficult. I like this matchup for Ole Miss, obviously. It's one of those things you're playing against Tulane. They can't really match up necessarily with your offensive line. They can't match up with your defensive line. And as most people know, whenever you're deficient on the lines, you're not going to win the game very often. So we'll see. If you add into the fact that they're also below 100 in passing yards allowed, this is not a good matchup for the Tulane defense, which means if Ole Miss can just avoid catastrophes, turnover plays, special teams touchdowns, they're going to be all right. And that Sugar Bowl, which New Year's, there's worse ways to spend New Year's than in New Orleans. That could be on the table.
So I know my dad used to always tell me when I was growing up, it's hard to beat a good team twice. So I remember I was debating with him. I was like, Dad, Ole Miss is going to rock Tulane.
Yes.
But why do you think, obviously, Stephen, this isn't going to be the same team. Tulane is much improved from that first time. Still, though, why should we be so confident that Ole Miss is going to beat Tulane? I think the result will be the same, but I think it'll be much closer. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the lines of scrimmage, that doesn't change, even though that Tulane has gotten better. You know, no offense to anybody that might be watching this, but Memphis was the toughest team that they played, either them or North Texas. Either one of them would be double-digit underdogs against Ole Miss going into this game. And I think the line of scrimmage is going to be very important. And it's also worth remembering the Tulane that was in September 20th, 3 months ago, they didn't see the Kewan Lacey that became Kewan Lacey at the end of the season. So Ole Miss didn't really have a running game the first time these two teams met. It was basically the Trinidad Chambliss show. Now you can get Kewan Lacey. There's more comfortability, all of that. This Ole Miss offense is a lot better than it was on September 20th. And because of that, it's going to make it harder on the front seven of Tulane because they have to focus on stopping the run and not helping their secondary defend the pass, which they've been opportunistic, but they haven't been very good.
Yeah, I think it was something close to 600 total yards given up by Tulane against Ole Miss when they played back in September. And so that is a ton. Even at that point, to your point, Stephen, they can't afford a shootout. Tulane can't win a shootout with Ole Miss. And even if Tulane's offense is better, there's no way they can win a shootout with Ole Miss.
Yeah, the path for Tulane is the Ole Miss Kentucky game from 2024. Play slow, run the ball, just get first downs. You want a 15, 16, 20-play drive if you can make it happen to where the offense stays off the field. Because at that point, if they kill possessions by 2 or 3 possessions, an interception, something that helps you gain a possession, there's a chance that you can move forward. Because the reality in this situation, if it's in the fourth quarter and it's a one-score game, Ole Miss is probably going to get tight. That whole stadium is going to get weird because they're not expecting something like that. They're expecting a coronation, a celebration. If a football game breaks out in the fourth quarter, Ole Miss could get tricky. I don't think that's going to happen, but that is a possibility that we need to look at, down the road in case it does. The more I look at it, the lines of scrimmage, the offensive line against the Tulane defensive line, the Tulane defensive line against the Ole Miss offensive line, how are they going to be able to make stops in there? And this Ole Miss offensive line has improved probably more than any other position on the field from the beginning of the season to right now, to the point where at the end of the year, they were just a good unit. And you have a mobile quarterback and all of that. There's just a lot playing in Ole Miss's favor right now.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I was wanting to ask you about the strength-on-strength game up front. But so I want to respond to several things you said. The first thing is I think if it gets a one-score game in the first quarter, this team has shown that they'll be comfortable because they tend to get in those what I like to call hold on for dear life games.
They'll wake up, yeah.
So I wouldn't even get nervous if it's a one-score game in the fourth quarter because they're used to that. What I am kind of thinking is if Tulane walks in believing September was a fluke, are they wrong? And so I look at their upset formula because I always got to play devil's advocate with these things. And I say, like, okay, what is Tulane's path to victory? I think takeaways are mandatory. We've seen Trinidad Chambers, he hasn't thrown a lot. I think he's only got 3 interceptions on the season. He takes care of the ball. Tulane forced 5 turnovers in the AAC title game. And that North Texas quarterback was one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
Yeah, he's good.
I hope he ends up going to Oklahoma State with Eric Morris. But that's neither here nor there. I think for Tulane, they have to attack early. They can't let Ole Miss settle in. But just, Stephen, I think the reality check is, like we said, Ole Miss doesn't have a turnover problem, and Ole Miss doesn't chase points. I know a lot of teams get aggressive and like to go for it on fourth down. Ole Miss, we've seen, if it's not there, they'll take the points. They'll take the 3. Would you agree with that sentiment?
I think, honestly, it might even be more of that with Lane Kiffin gone because the days of going for a 4th and 5 on your own 25-yard line up by 10 points on the road, that's probably gone. I mean, Pete Golding's not going to put the defense and risk the defense at that. He's going to punt the ball and play defense. So I think that we need to see exactly how Pete's going to be a head coach. Is he going to be a by-the-numbers guy that was Matt Luke whenever he was in Oxford? Is he going to be the 9-year-old playing Madden that was Lane Kiffin from time to time? It's going to be interesting to see how he manages the game. And the fact that his first ever head coaching game is in the college football playoff, that's a record that won't be broken.
I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. I know we're talking the game, but I'm going to be real honest. I don't think it's going to be a game. I think that it's going to be a little bit of jitters in the very beginning. Then I think Ole Miss is going to blow the doors off them because I think the Ole Miss team, take the coach out of it. I think the Ole Miss team feels like they've earned this spot, and they're not going to let anybody talk down on them. They're going to handle business. That's just what I think. Can I talk about something that I'm a little bit, and I want your take on this, Stephen? I was a little surprised and maybe a little bit disappointed that Trinidad Chambers was not a Heisman Trophy finalist.
You, of all people, saying that, and you haven't. I've been the Trinidad Chambers guy on this show.
You have, but look at that.
I said that from the jump.
Look at the Heisman Trophy finalist list. Nobody had a better story than Trinidad Chambers in college football this year.
And they went with Diego Pavia as a finalist over him.
I can't be the only one who was mind blown by that. Stephen?
Well, whenever you look at what Ole Miss was going through at the end of October and the beginning of November, it begins to come in focus. Whenever everybody was figuring out who they were going to vote for, it was about where is Lane Kiffin going to coach next year, not, hey, these players are on this really great team doing really special things. And in my opinion, the players were robbed. The fans were robbed of an unbelievably special season over one person trying to make it about him. And that is the reason Trinidad Chambers finished 8th in the Heisman Trophy. He still finished 8th with no campaigning whatsoever.
None.
None. They didn't even talk about it from time to time. He finished 8th in the Heisman Trophy rankings. If he would have been campaigned even a little bit, he would have been a top 4 guy.
Absolutely.
That is probably I don't have ill feelings at all towards Lane Kiffin one way or the other about what he did and how he did it, how he handled it, whatever. It didn't personally affect my life. The one thing as a sports fan that I am annoyed or disappointed in him as a coach is that he didn't do that for Trinidad Chambers, who came in and did what he did all season long, led that team to a historic run. There's not a better, and look who won it. Old boy from Indiana.
Yeah,
Fernando.
but she has a good story too.
That's still, I'm just,
But obviously,
with worse numbers than Trinidad. Trinidad played in 10 games, had better numbers than Fernando Mendoza.
Absolutely. Ooh, all right. So while we're talking about the coach stuff, since we brought up Lane Kiffin again, Stephen, I want to ask your opinion on this. When we just look at the juxtaposition of handling an exit, obviously before this, we talked about if Lane leaves, would he be able to coach in the playoffs? Y'all explain to me why it made sense for him not to, and I completely agree. But Summerall is coaching in his game now. No different, Different situation because you're going from American to SEC while Lane is SEC to SEC. Just look at how Summerall is playing his exit with Tulane. He's giving back a bunch of money to Tulane, which will be important for the future.
It's not enough, but it'll be important.
Given what? I think he's giving $100K to them or
That's
something like that.
one player.
He's being very gracious on his way out. How do you kind of look at this whole, like, Lane is just like the evil guy in the eyes of Oxford, while Summerall is like a champion. Summerall says he wants to come back to Tulane and still be appreciated. I just thought that was very interesting how Summerall's playing all of this.
Well, first of all, Tulane being a G5 school going to the SEC, there's no, stigma with making that jump and what's going on. So you can go from Tulane, and it's like going from Ole Miss to the NFL. Nobody would have said anything if Lane Kiffin was going to the NFL. But the thing about Ole Miss and LSU, they play for a literal trophy. Mm-hmm. That's like the Sean Summerall taking the job at Memphis. And that's the juxtaposition of what really happened there. And Lane just spent 6 weeks trolling the Ole Miss fan base. They had 68,000 people at the Florida game, an unbelievable atmosphere. And the first thing he said is like, yeah, you should have seen it last week against the Citadel. It's like, why? Why even do something like that? You're one game away from the playoffs against Mississippi State, and you're sitting here worried about an attendance issue in the second half of a game against an FCS opponent in November. Why even do that? Well, the point is he was burning bridges. He doesn't know how to leave. He wants to explode the bridges on his way out of town so everything works for him. And because of that, it deteriorated. By mid-November, there was no chance that he was going to coach a playoff game. And it's a really sad thing. Now, if you look at it, I think 17 coaches and staffers have been alternated between Ole Miss and LSU in the last month or something like that. Mm-hmm. With like the rumor of Frank Wilson coming up at running back coach and Ole Miss's running back coach potentially going out to there. It's nuts. September 19th is going to be a movie, everybody. It's going to be a movie. Just if you're game day, heck, if you're big noon kickoff, they don't even have an SEC contract. If you're even that, just announce you're coming to Oxford because this is going to be a ridiculous day.
It reminds me of like back in the day, so you had a girlfriend and you wanted her to break up with you, but you didn't want to be the bad guy. So you just do enough bad stuff till eventually she breaks up with you, right? And then you'd be like, well, I wasn't the bad guy. I wanted to do things the right way. That's kind of the way he played it. He had enough stuff going on to where he forced the administration's hand to have to make a decision so he could put up his hands and say, well, I wanted to coach. I wanted to keep going, but they wouldn't let me. And so, I think we can all agree that he did not play those cards well. He should have just been honest from the jump.
Stephen, do you believe that he actually did, like that the leadership council, quote unquote, wanted him to stay and coach as what he's been reporting?
No, absolutely not. I believe the actual vote of that, the real one, was 11-1 no. I'm not going to name the yes, but it was 11-1 no.
I 1,000% believe that.
Yeah, and they flat out posted on Twitter that that's not what we talked about. You're mischaracterizing people that were in the room. And basically, if you look at it, what they did in the puff piece story that got put out, I guess it was The Athletic or something like that claimed it. The three people that posted on social media, they made it 9-3. That was what the vote was, because people could say on Twitter looking at that, it's like, no, it was not that at all. Listen, before the state game, before the Egg Bowl, whenever all of this was getting ready to percolate, there were people saying, hey, we want an interim coach now. We don't even want him to coach the Egg Bowl.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's how much it had deteriorated and started to affect the locker room. And the fact that this football team was able to win games against Florida and Oklahoma and Mississippi State while all this is going on, I am genuinely curious to see what it looks like when nothing's going on. Yeah. What does this football team look like not distracted? That's going to be fascinating.
One more thing I'm going to ask you, and then we got to switch gears to college basketball, which we want you to stay on to talk Ole Miss hoops. One last thing I've been thinking. With obviously Lane's not coaching, but he sent all his guys. He sent Charlie Weiss and he sent a bunch of guys. What did you personally feel about that? Because isn't it almost the same thing that you're basically sending a lot of your staff back to Ole Miss, so those fears that those guys can be like, they can be sleeper agents. They can still convince guys and come to LSU, which is what you feared with Lane.
That's a make good, don't you think, Stephen? Just kind of a good gesture on the way out?
No, not maybe with the way it went down, because by the time he left, it was pretty bad. But the assistant coaches, they're not going to do that. I used to be on staff at Ole Miss back in the mid-2000s, and the saying was you're loyal to your paycheck. I mean, no matter where you are, there's no real ties. You have a job to do, you're going to do the job, because if you don't, that's going to affect you trying to get the next job. So I'm not worried about Charlie Weiss Jr. and those guys doing anything weird. Now, if you want to be smart and do the 4D chess thinking about it, I think Brian Brown said yesterday in the press conference that Pete Golding has answers for answers. This could be one of those type situations, because Pete Golding has done a pretty fantastic job of putting his staff together. He almost has his on-field staff together. Now you have those coaches coaching on the field and game planning, and everything looks normal like always. The new coaches, they're completely working on retention. They're working on the transfer portal. They're prepared to take care of those two events when otherwise you would be game planning. So Pete Golding might have taken this into a very disadvantaged situation and kind of found a way to make it work in his favor.
Yeah, good point. All right, Stephen, don't go anywhere. We got to talk college basketball next. I know there's a lot to talk about with Ole Miss. I know Coach Beard has not been happy over the last couple of weeks. We're going to talk Ole Miss and Memphis and where they stand when we come back. All right, obviously we've been talking a lot about college football. Now, though, it's time to talk about some basketball, reset some hoops. Ole Miss, 6-4, having lost 4 of the last 5 games.
Still pre-SEC play. They finally got a win in their last outing, beating Southern Miss 71-67 this past Saturday. But this isn't about record, Ruben. It's about trajectory. Now, Steven stuck around for us to talk some hoops. Steven, for folks who haven't been locked into basketball yet, see what I did there, what kind of team is Ole Miss this season?
Well, right now they're a defensive team, and they're not a very good shooting team. And they have some pieces to be a good team, and you could see where their ceiling is going to be incredibly high, but they have not gelled at this point. A.J. Storr is kind of the leader developing on this team right now, and you've got Ilias Carmerdine on Keza Giffa and those guys going out. Malik Dia, for whatever reason, it hasn't clicked in just yet. Now, Ole Miss is going to go on a run at some point this season. I'm not exactly 100% sure when, but they're going to go on a run. The offseason, there was a game at Madison Square Garden against St. John's. There were some very tough contests, including a tournament out in Palm Springs. This Ole Miss team, I think, is going to be fine, but they are digging themselves a hole pretty quickly, and they need to start shooting the ball better. Travis Perry, who was kind of brought in to be the dead-eye shooter, has not gotten off to a good start in his Ole Miss career, and Camerdine is just adjusting to college football and the American game. And I think this Ole Miss team is going to be fine eventually, but they can't wait too much longer to get going, if that makes sense.
Man, there's good wins, bad losses, all that stuff does add up when you start talking about NCAA tournament, but you can't have too many losses at the end of the day. Stephen, I want to talk to you a little bit about Coach Beard's frustration. I was able to watch one of his press conferences after one of those games, and he flat out said, we're going to find guys who are going to play hard. Basically, I'm tired of playing these guys who think they deserve to play. I want guys who are going to play hard. Do you think they're getting any closer to that? And have you seen that same lack of intensity when you've watched those games?
It's been a little bit disjointed. I have noticed that. Listen, Tim Thomas is a guest on my show pretty much weekly talking about basketball. And when your shot's not falling, he talks about rebound and play defense. Just concentrate on that and the shot will come. I have to think that the shot will come for the Ole Miss players, Ilias Camerdine, all of those guys. the defensive side, the effort, things like that, the positionless basketball that Chris Beard wants to play, I think there just turns out to be a little bit more of an adjustment this year than we all thought that would happen. And with Cameron and Gizza being European players, there's an international flair to this Ole Miss basketball team. Just might be taking a little bit of time for them to come together.
When we look at Chris Beard, he's in year 3. His 50 wins already third fastest in school history. Sweet 16 last season. So, Stephen, you could say expectations have quietly raised. This program no longer rebuilding. What's different about year 3 Beard teams compared to years 1 and 2?
Well, normally he has his complete system intact and the players that he wants in position. It's at that point, in year 3, you have a Chris Beard team, the one that everybody thinks of when you think of Chris Beard. And for whatever reason, this season hasn't been able to do it. Even though Ilias Cameron, 6'4", you got the positionless. If they stand it in a height line, they would look like a Chris Beard team. But the shots aren't falling right now for whatever reason. And they have to really stick to playing defense and rebounding the ball and doing the little things well and just wait for the other stuff to open up, because SEC play coming up in a couple of weeks. You kind of have to get right, starting with the game against Alabama A&M.
So to your point, and you've mentioned it a couple of times, and for good reason, the shots aren't falling. Something that's always been one of my pet peeves in basketball for my entire, I've been coaching basketball for 20 years at this point, is that when kids are little, all the way to the time they're growing up, when the game's over, the first thing their parents ask them or congratulate them about is how many points they scored.
Yeah.
Right? So kids, people get geared to, their energy is tied to their point total. I'm making shots, I'm playing hard. I'm missing shots, I don't play as hard. And I felt like that was the point that Coach Beard was trying to make, was that I need guys who are going to play hard whether they're making shots or not. And who are some of the guys on the bench that maybe are going to start getting some more of that time, whether they're making shots or not?
Yeah, Patton Peekins is somebody that is a true freshman that is slowly scoring points and getting minutes. His father is Al Peekins, an assistant coach for the team. He came in as a true freshman, and he's adapted pretty quickly with what's going on. Listen, the important thing is you need to get going with Malik Dia. I think he is the injured. There's Augusto Cassia and all those guys on the front line, but I think Malik Dia is the engine for this basketball team, whether you know it or not, because Cameron and all that in the backcourt's going to be fine. But you need a presence down low, and Dia has the ability to be that guy. He can play bully ball when he wants to. The problem with Malik Dia is sometimes he doesn't seem to want to. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't want to, but that's the way it comes across. And I think if he gets going, all of a sudden he has a couple of good games where he's 13-8, 15-7, something like that. All of a sudden, I think the whole level of the whole team will go up.
We've talked a lot about defense, and I think you could say, Stephen, that defense is probably the identity of this team, because even though the shots aren't falling, they're averaging 5.6 blocks per game. That's still top 20 in the country.
Yeah.
Like we said, they got length everywhere. 11 different players could get you a block, still seem to pile up. Is this Beard's best defensive team yet?
It should be. Now, I am curious about like I said, the international flavor, because, for better or worse, international players are different than American players. The whole culture of growing up learning the game is different. And because of that, sometimes a dog on the defensive end, that's somebody that, being from Memphis, you guys know exactly what that looks like, because you can't hit a 9-iron without hitting one of those guys. The international game, it's a little bit different. They play the game much more finesse. So there is an adjustment. There's 5 international players on this Ole Miss roster right now. 2 from France, a couple from Brazil. They play really, really hard, but they have to get used to this style of playing. And if they can do that, they're going to be pretty good. Until then, I want to see if somebody like a Patton Peekins, who's 6'5", he's incredibly long. If he gets a role on the defensive side of the ball because of what he can do, and if he starts scoring the ball, is that something that's like, okay, well, he's going to end up on the court more?
So I'm going to say it because Steven doesn't want to say it because he's being nice. But we've all of us have always said it. European players are soft, right? They're just softer than American players. We play more physical style of basketball here. It's just more physical. And it takes a while for an international player to come across and get used to the physicality because internationally it's not as physical as it is here in the U.S. and especially in the SEC. So you're talking about coming from a situation where it's not as physical to probably the most physical level of college basketball you can play. So I said it, Steven, so that you don't have to say it.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, so I mean, let's just before we have to wrap up on
We're about
Ole
to
Miss
let him
here.
go. You got to be ready for lunch or something, Steven.
Let's take a look at like the bigger picture for Ole Miss. So, like we said, we're still pre-SEC play, but Steven, SEC play is unforgiving. I told my dad I ironically think that SEC is probably the best basketball conference in college basketball.
It's 1 and 2 for sure.
And
1 and 1A.
So with what does Ole Miss have to do to get right? Because you can say I think this team's floor is high, but the ceiling depends on shot making.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think they need to find a way to get to 10 or 11 in the Southeastern Conference. If you can do that, you will be all right. That would get them close to where their ceiling is supposed to be. Like I said, losing in Madison Square Garden, losing in Palm Springs to a couple of teams, that's not going to necessarily kill you. So the fatal loss hasn't happened yet. So you can go through, win your games heading into conference play, and find a way to get W's in the Southeastern Conference. If you can do that, you'll find yourself working in March Madness just like they did a year ago.
All right. Steven, we thank you so much for all of your time and your insight. Much needed and much appreciated for sure.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, let's bring it back home now. The Memphis Tigers basketball had a tough test on the road this past Saturday night, Ruben.
Yeah, they were actually at Louisville the full week to prepare, but the Cardinals, the 11th ranked team in the country, showed why they're one of the hottest teams. They can shoot that ball.
Memphis hung around early, but once Louisville found another gear, it turned into a long night. The Cards hit shots, controlled the tempo, and pulled away late for a 99-73 win.
So after the game, Coach Penny Hardaway didn't sugarcoat it. He gave Louisville credit and put the loss on himself.
Obviously, it's terrible outcome for us with a week to prepare. Kudos to Louisville. Played really good game, well-oiled machine. On both ends of the floor, they were the aggressor. And I'll just have to take this as a coach and say my team wasn't prepared as their team was, and we had a bad loss.
So it's not often that you hear the coaches take that loss, take it on themselves. I always say good leaders take the loss and give away the credit. So I was glad to see Coach Penny. Yeah, glad to see Coach Penny say it that way.
Well, I like how he didn't blame the effort or the refs or his team. He set the tone for how the team is going to respond next, which will be Wednesday, tonight, actually, against Vanderbilt, but he didn't wait until film day to say it. He said it right then and there. What did you feel about that?
I think that's what you have to do. He's probably tried all of the other methods to motivate his team to play at a high level. Coaches know that at some point, you've done the rah-rah, you've done the yelling, you've done the punishment. At some point, you just say, okay, well, maybe it's not you guys, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the one who's not doing this right. Let me recalculate and figure out what we have to do to be better. At the end of the day, the buck stops with him. He's the head coach. He's the one making that big paycheck. And he knows that. And so he's saying, hey, look, at the end of the day, it's my responsibility to have them ready. They weren't ready. Now, at the end, I'll counter that with, I always tell players, it's your job to perform, right? We can get you to the spot. We can get people to watch you play. Like, we can get you where you got to be. We can teach you all the stuff you need to know. But at the end of the day, players have to perform. You want to be a player, you got to perform when the lights are on.
Something you've also said is you only get so many my bads.
Well, that's
and I
my
think
thing.
For Penny, this is too much of him saying my bad. I mean, he keeps putting it on himself. He put the UNLV loss on himself. He put the Ole Miss loss on himself. He put this loss on himself. He put the Wake Forest loss on himself. That's essentially 4 my bads.
What does that tell you, though? Do you think that, I'll be real honest, do you think that he truly thinks that he's not the one getting prepared? No. But he's not going to publicly chastise his team anymore. He's already done it as much as he can. He's already called them out. He started the season, he said, I want guys who want to play. Like, give me guys who have effort.
That was
him
coming off of exhibition.
That was
now
him
we're actually
publicly.
in the season where the games count.
Yeah, but that's him publicly
It feels like
saying
he didn't switched it, been like, it's on me. And we like I said, we give him grace because this is a completely new team. When
the schedule is not easy either. I mean,
yeah, but still, you look up and you would think that their record should be better than what they are.
Yes, the problem is they lost to teams they shouldn't lose to, like Wake Forest, right? You got to beat Wake
and
Forest
UNLV.
and UNLV. You
Who
got to win
lost
those,
to Tennessee State.
You got to win those two games. Then the losses against the ranked teams like the Louisvilles and the Purdue's and all those don't sting as much because you're only losing to top 25 teams.
And now he lost to Ole Miss, who as soon as they lost that game, Ole Miss seemed to
stumbled.
Stumbled.
They've stumbled now. So the issue that Memphis is struggling with right now is you got a whole new team, but they're not the only team in the country struggling with that. But they've got a whole new team trying to find their way, not particularly shooting the ball great, and then playing a really, really tough schedule. Now, when they get to the American Conference, they're going to blow people out. They're going to dominate them. I think they're going to dominate the American Conference. And I think people are going to look back and be like, okay, well, their losses were against all these tough. When we're talking March Madness, that slate is going to say, okay, well, they dominated their conference.
What's a good loss?
They just had all these losses against top 25 teams. Right now, it hurts more because they're so close. But by the end of the season, you'll look back and say, okay, yeah, they lost 5 games to top 25 teams.
Yeah, and at least they beat a team like Baylor, a team that got some really good players, a team that's won a national championship. I think they need a statement road victory, and I think that's why it kind of stings so much because they can't get that statement road victory. But they have opportunity to get a statement home victory, another statement home victory with Vanderbilt, an SEC team. You told me they were undefeated. I did not know that.
They are 10-0, tough to beat. 4 guys average double figures on that team. They've got 4 guys who have started all 10 games. Another player started 9 games. So you're talking about a team that is well-oiled, very cohesive. They've only had 1 true road game, so that's the trick. When they play Memphis on the road, it'll only be their second true road game. They got 3 neutral site games. So there is
still
that
kind of like
ability.
a rivalry game because the Nashville-Memphis rivalry.
But it's just not. It's just not. Not that I know of. I mean, I don't.
I remember when Vandy came here a few years ago when Jerry Stackhouse was coaching. It was a pretty good crowd. I hope it's a good crowd tonight. It's a Wednesday.
I think it'll be a great crowd for the game Wednesday night because it's a top 25, it's a top 15 team coming in or whatever, and you've got an opportunity to potentially upset a top 15 team. And I hope that Memphis gets it together, and win or lose, it's a very competitive game because you can lose that game, lose it by 3, 4, 5 points, and that's a good loss. Now, you can't lose by 20 because then that becomes a bad loss.
What do you think would be some keys to victory for Memphis to get the win?
Control the turnover margin. Like, turnovers are turnovers. When you play against a good team like that, they're going to make you pay every time. Tonight is one of those games or Wednesday night's one of those games where you can't have a bunch of my bads. Everybody's got to play at a level where they're efficient with the ball. And I think they have to shoot the ball at a better rate than what they've been shooting it. And then free throws are going to matter. Get to the free throw line, attack the paint, because your depth isn't what it has been, what you probably need it to be. And so I always tell people, man, you can cheat a timeout by getting to the free throw line.
Yeah. I think I could summarize it in 3 things. Be efficient, be aggressive, and be active defensively. If they do that, I think Memphis gets a victory.
Well, we're all going to find out after that game's over. But they've had a tough stretch. So if you're a Memphis fan, hang in there. Again, it's a tough stretch when you're talking about all these top 25 teams they've played, and they still have their conference to come. Their conference, they're going to be fine. I am not. After watching them play Purdue, I was sold on how good this team could be because they played Purdue really, really well, and Purdue is extremely talented.
They just need their guy. We're 3 weeks into the season, we still don't know who the star of Memphis is. Last year we knew it was PJ Haggerty.
May not have a star. But one thing I will say, and Stephen alluded to it earlier in our Ole Miss segment, if you notice, the teams that are really good this year can all really shoot the ball.
Yeah.
You got to be able to really shoot the ball in basketball now in a way probably more so than before because even the bigs can shoot it some and you're not rim protecting the way you used to. But teams who are really the Purdue's, the Louisvilles, those teams, all those types of teams, they shoot the ball really, really well. And that's what Memphis will have to get to.
All right. That's it for Memphis Tigers. We talk so much college basketball. I love talking hoops, but we're not done talking hoops. We're just done talking college. After the break, we're going to break down the Grizzlies, which the recent return of Ja Morant, they picked up steam lately. Are they on the way up? We'll talk about it when we come back. Memphis fans might finally be seeing a corner turn. The Grizzlies just picked up a really impressive win over the Clippers, 121-103 Monday night. It wasn't fluky, Ruben.
Impressive is a strong word because the Clippers are horrible. They've only won 6 games
See how
all
they
year.
did Chris Paul?
The Clippers are not good. Jerry Jackson Jr. dropped 31. 21 of those came before halftime. Cam Spencer with 27 in that game.
Now, Ruben, we talked all year about scoring depth. When Spencer's hitting like this, does it start feeling real, like this team could make some noise again?
Yeah, that's what they were missing. They were missing somebody who could stretch the defense, hit threes, and keep the defense honest because Ja is not hitting threes like that. He is not a three-point killer. He's got to get downhill. He's got to shoot his floater. He's got to shoot his jump shot, and he's got to get to the rim. And this allows him to do that.
But I do feel like the energy is starting to look a little different. I know at the beginning it was a lot of rah-rah about Coach Isolo and his rotations and him beefing with Ja. Now it seems like they are coalescing. And one of the bright spots is Cam Spencer. His confidence is just equaling shot creation. I think on one of these threes, he looked at a guy and he said, drafted him over me. I like it. Because you remember stuff like that. Yeah, you took that guy over me, and now I'm about to bust you.
Yeah, but I mean, I think as long as we all know shooting is hard. Shooting is it's a rhythm and it comes and goes. There's an ebb and flow in shooting. And you can, if you're relying on somebody, look, Cam is not Steph, right?
But he's been shooting the ball like Steph.
I think he's having a phenomenal season, and I hope it continues. But if you try to put the weight of the world on that guy right now, it's going to be too much. I think what's happening really well is that other people are scoring and that he's doing his job. And so as long as he's able to keep doing his job, then I think Memphis they do substantially look like a much better team. Started off so slow, so ugly, and has gotten so much better.
So with this Cam Spencer stretch, it didn't just start last night, or Monday night, I should say. It started with the Jazz game. But in that Jazz game, it was a totally different feel. Memphis got beat up late, defensive breakdowns pile up. We were focusing on this game because it was the return of Ja Morant, a guy who had been out since early November. He made his return. He gave out the free tickets. We thought that this was going to be a Ja showcase, and it looked like it. He scored the first points.
He had 21 in the game, but they still lost.
Yeah, and he didn't kind of turn it on Ja himself until the second half. After that first basket, he looked kind of rough. But you looked at this game, and you did not think that the Grizz were going to lose this game. So what did you think, when you were watching this game, like the highlights?
Well, I think they were trying to get used to having Ja back in the lineup because when somebody's gone for 2 or 3 weeks or longer, then your rotation changes. People are touching the ball and getting opportunities more when Ja's not there. Now when Ja comes back, you got to get him his touches again. And it just changes your flow of what you're doing offensively. That's the biggest issue that comes with long-term injuries is when you're gone, somebody else is taking your shots. Somebody else is getting your passes, and you got to figure out how, when you come back, how to get you back in the flow. And you cannot not get Ja Morant back in the flow. So that means you're taking the ball out of somebody else's hands who's been contributing, and that can impact the energy, that can impact the flow, that can impact the ball movement.
You talk about a guy who's been taking his shots. It's been Cam Spencer, like he said it. But he said it. The bigger story for him isn't scoring at all. In fact, let's take a listen to what Cam Spencer said after that Jazz game.
I was focused more on the defensive end, trying to get stops. Credit to my teammates and the coaching staff. I feel like they put us in a good position to be successful. To be honest, don't focus on scoring, just focus on making sure that the Grizzlies score. If it's me, if it's not, if it's somebody else, then great. We have a very easy team to play with. I feel like the ball moves very well, and that makes it easier for everybody on the offensive end.
Now, while I love that, if you want to be honest, the defense is not very good right now in the NBA. And so even on that inbound play that we just showed, it was a simple up screen. Cam came down to the corner. Since the time you've been in grade school, what's the one pass you don't give up on a baseline inbounds?
It's a three-pointer.
Corner threes, right? And nobody guarded the corner three on the inbound.
I feel like that's the easiest thing to guard,
So
too.
the defense, I'm not taking anything away from Cam's ability to make shots because it doesn't matter if they're guarding you or not. You still have to put the ball in the bucket. What's going to happen, though, is with the way he's shooting the ball, people are going to start
keying on him
harder. And so he's going to get less open looks. And so they're going to have to become more creative on how they actually get him the ball. One thing I always loved about Steph when I watched him play was how much he moved without the ball. Mm-hmm. How many times he was setting screens for somebody, then popping, then rolling, then coming back through out of an elevator screen, then popping to the top of the key. I mean, the dude would be moving for 15 seconds before he ever touched the ball. That's what's going to happen for Cam Spencer.
And if it happens, hopefully he'll know how to adjust. But a big thing is we'll need more from Jaren Jackson. Now,
He's been doing more lately.
Yeah, we saw him in the game against the Clippers. But the Jazz game, he only had 12 points. He didn't play well. In fact, I spoke to him after the game. This is what he had to say. He didn't sugarcoat it.
I probably need to make more shots. That always helps. And then, some of their players got hot a little bit first half, quieted down a little, but, Kevin Love especially in that one stretch, I think we just communicating better, making sure I get a hand up and tracking him better. So, just being better offensively and defensively for sure.
Now, Ruben, I think that's leadership. Like we said with Penny, doesn't blame the scheme, blames himself. But how did that hit you on that?
If you have to admit that you're not playing defense on Kevin Love, do I have to say anything else? Kevin Love hasn't been good in a decade. And you're letting Kevin Love get hot, and then after the game saying, well, I probably should have played defense on him. Yeah, you probably should play defense on him.
I was surprised Kevin Love was out there.
That's what I'm saying. So
the Jazz.
But that's my beef with the NBA in general. I mean, you know that. But that's just my beef in general.
I'm glad you set it up. Let's zoom out from the individual games. There's a big question about style surrounding basketball today, especially in Memphis, and Ruben says it all the time. But Tigers head coach Penny Hardaway made headlines with comments this week about how the NBA has become almost all threes. Let's take a look at the quote. Penny Hardaway says the NBA isn't too fun to watch anymore. He says, over the years, to me, it's just getting worse and worse. Not in a bad way, but for me to watch, because I'm in college, I see the fundamentals in playing team ball. And just shooting all the threes now, it's just a little irritating to me to watch an NBA game. No one shoots layups anymore. It's fun to watch for fans, but for guys that were pure in the game, it's a little difficult. This was via Jason Munn's The Commercial Appeal.
Now, who does that sound like?
You.
Me. It's exactly what I tell you all the time. That's the NBA has been manipulated so that the casual basketball fan can cheer, not so that the actual basketball fan can enjoy watching the game. The casual basketball fan wants to see threes and dunks. That's all they care about. So if you're a casual basketball fan and somebody hits a three, it's boom, right? That's what gets those. But the NBA did it on purpose because they needed butts in the seats. And you need more than just the pure basketball fans to cheer you on. You need butts in the seats. So yes, to Penny's point, I 1,000% agree. I would love to see more pure basketball, passing, cutting, back screening, back cuts, not just pick and roll for fade out threes, not 7-footers standing outside who shoot 20% from three-point land, but make one every, 8, and now they're three-point shooters. I get so tired of it.
But are you starting to see kind of the NBA infect college basketball? Because what you said earlier, now teams are shooting the ball more, and
no, what I said
is
no, that's not what I said. What I said is the teams that are good shooting teams. That doesn't mean that they're shooting 73s a game. That means that when they shoot, they make shots. And at the college level, I hope it doesn't turn into the NBA because I love watching college basketball. I watch college basketball all the time. What I love about college basketball is the passion that goes into it as well. But and I get it, the NBA is full of huge dudes. You got to spread the floor. I get that part of it. But what I'm saying is it becomes so reliant. It's not fun to watch when I'm watching a team come down and you can see 5 or 6 possessions in a row of just threes. Not even good threes, not ball movement, wide open shot, just dribble down, one pass, shoot a three because the guy's not playing defense. That is boring basketball. I have no desire to watch that.
You know what they call you in Penny? Old men yelling at the clouds.
Well, I'm sorry that we understand how basketball is supposed to be played, and you don't. I don't know what to tell you.
I just like basketball, period. So you can't run that on me. I like watching college. I like watching pros. I like watching high school.
I watch the NBA after the All-Star break.
I just love basketball, period. So I just love the game, period.
I think the NBA gets a lot more interesting after the All-Star break because people are starting to fight for playoff positioning. And so people play harder. And then up until like the last week of the season when the playoffs are determined and nobody plays hard again. But in the beginning, it's fun. I mean, it's fun to watch your favorite stars go out and make these amazing plays, things that you and I could do if we ever wanted to.
Yeah, you know.
But I do wish I could see a more defensive, more of a push for defense in the NBA. Prove to me, and again, not a knock, Cam Spencer is a great shooter. What's going to happen when they lock up on him?
He fits the modern three-heavy fold of the NBA.
And this isn't against Cam. Will the style of play allow him to still get open and get those shots? Is there going to be enough screening, enough ball movement, enough cutting so that he can still get those shots and shoot the ball the way he's been shooting it? If so, I'll love it.
But you know where Cam Spencer came from, right? He came from UConn, one of those fundamental teams that's probably UConn is one of my favorite college basketball programs to watch.
They're going to move.
I'm a softcore UConn fan. So I think Cam Spencer coming out of UConn, he fits that type of mold.
All right. That's it. I'm off my soapbox.
Yeah, we digress. Well, time for a quick break, and then we're back with 901 Bets. It's been a while, I got to say. But I'll give you the latest bankroll basics and my picks for Ole Miss and Memphis' bowl games. Stay close. What up, and welcome to the 901 Bets. Think of this as sports betting for dummies right here in Memphis. Now, before we get rolling, quick reminder, if gambling has become a problem for you, hit that Tennessee Gambling Hotline, that number right on your screen, 800-889-9789. All right, y'all, let's break down today's bankroll basics, the double chance bet. Now, if you're new to sports betting, this one's a great entry point because it gives you a little extra cushion. Now, here's how it works. Instead of just betting on one outcome, a double chance covers 2 of the 3 possibilities, win, lose, or draw. So you might take Memphis to win or draw. And as long as the Tigers don't lose outright, your bet hits. Now think of it like going to Beale Street for barbecue. You've got a favorite spot in mind, but you just keep a backup just in case the line's around the block. Now either way, you're still eating good, but you're not getting a big surprise payout or discovering some hidden gem hole in the wall. That's the trade-off. Lower risk, smaller payout. Now, a double chance won't make you rich, like my name, but it will keep your bankroll steadier. And sometimes, that's the smartest play in the book. All right, let's get ahead of the line on 901 Bets. I'm rolling with the Georgia Bulldogs to win the college football national championship. Now, right now, the Dogs sit near the top of most futures boards, second best odds in the country to take it all home. So why tell this? First, UGA just dominated in the SEC championship, blowing out Alabama 28-7, and that was no fluke. Their defense smothered one of the toughest offenses in the nation, and their offense stayed efficient all day. This program isn't new to this. They literally are the only team in the college football playoff era to win back-to-back national titles. That pedigree matters when you get into January ball. They also have a first-round bye in the playoff and are battle-tested from the SEC grind. That experience in big moments, that's going to swing games. So, yeah, tell this pick. Georgia's path isn't just bold. It's backed by results, talent, and championship experience. Time now for Bluff City Lions, your weekly 901 Bets breakdown. Memphis takes on NC State in the Gasparilla Bowl in Tampa. The Tigers, they have nothing to lose. The Wolfpack are favored. So for the outright winner, I like Memphis to pull off the upset. NC State's defense is vulnerable on third downs and in the red zone, and Memphis' offense, they can exploit that. Now, the spread is NC State minus 4.5, and I like the Tigers with the points. With their strong turnover margin and red zone efficiency, Memphis should keep it close. Now, the total is 58.5. I'm going to take the over on that. Both teams can score. Memphis likes to push tempo, so you can expect a high-scoring shootout. So there you have it. Memphis money line, 4.5 on the spread, and the over, 58.5. All right, let's move on down to Oxford. Ole Miss takes on Tulane in the first round of the college football playoffs. The Rebels are heavy favorites after a 45-10 win earlier this season. Now, for the outright winner, come on now, I'm going to take Ole Miss. The Rebels are motivated, playing for pride after Lane Kiffin's departure, and Tulane will have to overcome a team that already dominated them in Oxford. Now, the total is 56.5. I'm going to take the over on that. Both offenses can move the ball, and Ole Miss, they definitely have the firepower to put up points early. Tulane will likely keep it close early, which is going to set up scoring opportunities, but still think Ole Miss runs away with this one. So there you have it. Ole Miss money line and the over at 56.5. And as always, send me your takes. If you have a betting terminology you're unsure of, send it my way. Want my opinion on a slip or a ticket you have? Send it my way. And man, if you even want to spotlight your W, we've shown on this program, we will give you your flowers on this because we have fun over here. You can at me on X at RD2Sports, text the number 901-321-7520, or just use the hashtag ABC24Floor. But in saying all that, remember, folks, producer Leanna, bring it up one more time for me, please. This content is for entertainment purposes only. ABC24 and its affiliates do not encourage gambling. Viewer discretion is advised. Any betting decisions you make are solely your responsibility. We are not responsible for any financial losses or wins resulting from information presented on this program. One more break. When we come back, it's the best thing we saw this week, and I'll give you a hint. Mine represents my hometown. Stay close.
All right, the best thing I've seen this month is Cam Spencer's shooting. Cam is lighting it up from the three-point line. For the month of December, listen to this. He has 20 of 30. That's 67% from the three-point line for the month of December. We're not talking about a game. We're not talking about a couple of games or a road trip. We're talking about for the month of December, this dude is shooting the skin off that ball.
You called it Cam I am.
Cam I am.
And Cam he is. Now, I asked him after that Jazz game if he wants to compete in the three-point contest. He said he does, but he says it's out of his hands. I didn't know that the NBA has to pick you. I thought you could just volunteer and say, hey, I want to be in it.
Well, I think they're going to try to petition for it at some point, like try to make the case. I think they were talking about maybe him and his brother shoot off against the Curry boys.
You think? I think Steph has won it so much he doesn't really need to be in it anymore.
True, but I mean, I do think people would. I think Cam has a great story.
Yeah.
And I think the way he's shooting the ball, man, I hope he keeps shooting it that way because I think that gives Memphis another level. But again, best thing I've seen, the way that man is shooting the basketball.
Cam I am.
Cam I am.
Now let's move to the best thing I saw. If we can roll the footage, the best thing I saw is my old high school doing something that hasn't been done since I was a senior in 2014. That's win the state championship in football. Creekside High School punctuated a historic undefeated season with a 42-39 victory over Benedictine in the Georgia 4A state championship at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, bringing home title number 2. Now check this out, Ruben. The Seminoles, that's our mascot, scored 845 points this season, setting a record as the highest scoring team in state history.
Are you getting a ring?
No, but it doesn't. I can't be happy for my old high school. You want to be happier for your old high school?
I think my old high school did win state championship this year. In fact, one of my classmates is the head coach out there. He did. I saw it on social media. I didn't go back there, but I saw it on social media.
Still, you got to be happy, especially because, it brings up a lot of memories. I mean, when we won it, we were in the Georgia Dome in 2014. And I can feel like I was part because I was in the marching band and I was really cool with a lot of guys on the football team. So, I mean, it's historic. They surpassed us. I mean, Creekside has been knocking on the door for some time. And, I mean, I think it set it up. I don't know if you've seen this debate, especially with your boys playing football. There's now been this debate about Georgia-Texas high school football because Creekside beat a Texas team at the beginning of the season. They whooped them 70-28. So people weren't surprised that they punctuated it with a championship.
Texas has been known as the Mecca, but Georgia, I think, is right there with them. And then Florida's not far behind. And
so I got to ask, because, you got your kids play football. If you obviously, let's take away what we do for a living. If you could just pick, where do you want your kids to play football? Georgia, Texas, or Florida?
Ooh, that's tough.
Your son's really good at football.
Well, really, it depends on your kid's position because, Florida is athletes galore. Texas is traditionally like quarterbacks and skills, and Georgia's really athletes and defensive players for the most part. I think, just me kind of spitballing here.
Yeah.
So I think depending on we would probably lean towards Texas. I'm from Texas. That's probably where we'd lean towards going, and then let my kids keep developing as quarterbacks in those situations. Not to say that those other states don't do a good job.
Have you heard of Buford High School, the
big
Georgia school?
I know.
If Buford called you today and be like, we want your kid to come play for us,
they
just won.
Listen, I don't think my son is big enough to play at
Buford. Put on that green.
Yeah, you still gotta have the measurables.
Their campus looks like a college campus.
And And if you don't know, I'm 5'8.5", 5'9" on a good day. My kid is not going to be 6'5".
Think about Christian Brothers times 5. That's what Buford looks like.
So my son's probably going to be in that 5'11" to 6'2" range. So we'll see where he ends up playing long term.
Shout out to Creekside, man. I'm very happy for y'all as a former Nole. I'm very happy that y'all could bring it back home.
And shout out to Cam Spencer for shooting 67% from three. That's going to do it for today's episode of the 24th Floor. Shout out to everybody who made today's show possible.
Yes, especially Leanna Davis, Brooklyn High, for their work behind the scenes, putting the show together. Big shout out to our guy, Stephen Willis, for always coming on the show and talking some football and now hoops with us.
And a big shout out to you, Rich. You do all of this work behind the scenes that the people don't know about, shooting all these games, producing all this stuff, working your tail off. Much appreciated.
Appreciate it.
All right, we're going to be off again next week for Christmas break. I'm finally taking a vacation.
Yeah, but we'll try to get another show in before the year is over. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you when we see you.
Maybe.
Continue with us and watch free now on the 24 Plus app everywhere you stream.